has happened in the years that nature connectedness has been a field. It's actually been a field longer than 2001. But this field is massively exploding right now. This is a graphical, a curve over how many research papers are being published or how fast it's actually rising. And I really love that this nature connectedness research field is on the rise, because starting out in possibly either 1974 with the topophilia hypothesis, talking about how humans are connected to land or to place, or starting out by Wilson in 1984 with the biophilia hypothesis, talking about how humans are inseparably connected to nature, because they are nature. That has been the start of this research field, but it's been going very, very slowly for 30 years almost, until this explosion. And I think one of the reasons of this field really booming right now really is that we're starting to see this as one of the solutions to all these darkly painted pictures of bad mental health or bad planetary health, or all these crises that we have, both in terms of our ecology, but also in terms of our way of treating each other as a species. Because humans are connected to nature. We see that so many places when looking at ourselves. This first picture I think is really beautiful. It's a picture of a human lung, but it's also a picture, so it's an X-ray of a human lung, but it's also a picture of a tree top. So looking at that, if they would have been the same color, you might have not even been able to notice what was what. Because in very many ways we're built very similar, and genetically we are quite alike species, even being plants or trees and human beings. The next picture is also one that I like to display a lot, because they're also very similar. One is a human fingerprint, and the other one is a tree stump, so a tree being cut over. And I don't know if you've seen a tree trunk fallen, but when you can usually count those rings, it does really seem like a fingerprint. And to me, that is pretty amazing. Genetically, we do have this connection. Wilson, who invented the biophilia hypothesis, talked a lot about it. He really tried to tell all his research fellows at his time, that even though he was a biologist and very much came from a scientifically based research tradition, he was also very interested in eco-psychology and very interested in how nature was affecting us and how we were affecting nature. His research is really, really interesting to dive into if you're more interested in this sort of DNA-wise or genetic connection there is. Then it's also pretty well stated in nature connectedness research and in nature experience research also, that nature has this calling on us. Nature is really calling this intrinsic human curiosity that we have, this interest that we have, and this actually human need for nature that we have in us. So nature is drawing us in. Some research says that nature is intrinsically fascinating. That means if we're walking towards something nature, that could be something green, a forest, a meadow, it could also be the ocean or a range of mountains. If we're walking in that kind of area, as I told you earlier about the attention restoration that we need so badly right now, this is actually what restores our attention. This is actually not the only thing, but at least the fastest thing to restore our brain waves into a lower brainwave state, but also restore the attention we need. So give our brains a break, really. And this is because we have this intrinsic human need for nature. We are really being called towards something organic. I had a colleague once, he was from New Zealand, but he also did some research in my university in Copenhagen, and he did a really interesting project about children walking in a forest area and in an urban area, a city, with eye tracking glasses on them. And these eye tracking glasses were kind of like VR glasses that they had on, and they were just walking through this forest as a group. And these VR glasses were looking at, or counting the eye movements. So basically, this group of people walking through this forest area, they were their eyes were flickering a lot more when they were walking through an urban environment, meaning that the brain was on overload, it was overworking, and that is because it's an unorganic environment. So this environment in the city has like high, maybe skyscraper buildings, really tall buildings, very straight lines, maybe neon colors, flashing lights, and also probably a lot of traffic, which goes in a speed that is faster than our own species. So a car can go faster than human beings, meaning that we need to be very alert all the time and we don't rest at all. In the forest, even though we don't live in the forest anymore, our brain still, because of this genetic connection, our brain still relax and restore their attention better because we're in this organic environment, and this organic environment just draws us to it. I find that seriously so interesting, and I really see it working a lot when working therapeutically in nature with clients, that this is something that just happens even though you don't facilitate anything, but just being there and holding their space. So nature actually opens our sensory system a lot. We can use that if we're working as therapists or health-based intervention workers. We can use this deliberately. It's very often a good idea to allow a client to land and settle in if we take them outside, because then all of this settling in that you would have to facilitate very much in an indoor therapeutic space or office will happen mainly just by itself here. So nature actually functions as both this sensory system opener, but also a strength or a strengthening of our nervous system, and releases all of these good hormones that we often need to get out of our stress levels and feel nice. So really just all our good hormones are released when just being outside in nature. The nature connectedness research is mainly built around 3 components. This research is getting old now. It's about, from published in probably like 2000, 2002, and maybe up till 2012 by Schultz, saying that nature connectedness usually is seen as having 3 different components. So there's a cognitive component to nature connectedness, to this human-nature relationship. This has to do with what we learn about nature, what we wish to know, the knowledge we seek. So if you're doing a biology class, or if you're interested in birds and figuring out species, or picking plants, but also wanting to know the different families or species, just this knowledge part is very much what is in the cognitive component that has been research-wise used a lot to research learning and pedagogy, but also well-being quite a bit. So there's also an affective component that I would say is mainly the research component around the therapeutic field or the health-based field. So the affect component is very much about how an individual feels about nature, but also cares for nature. So very much this is about opening your senses, but also like noticing your emotions towards being in nature. It can be in terms of meaning making, in terms of memories, or it can be in terms of how do you feel being here right in this instant. And then there's this last component from the 3 Schultz components that are the behavioral one, or the tangible one, or the embodied one, very much about how we perceive ourselves as part of nature, and also having the possibility to impact both in a positive and negative way nature, and also the degree to which we want to advocate for and take action on behalf or speak on behalf of nature or the natural environment. Later research, including my own, is saying that nature connectedness is something to be facilitated into. It is possible to create nature connectedness in a lot of people. Also, Miles Richardson from the UK is saying that a lot. So nature connectedness is something that you can actually provide people with if it doesn't happen instantly on their own in their own like time or pace. Yeah. So looking into why wish to pursue nature connectedness. Obviously, for all the reasons I started this with, because we have a planet in its knees. We have a mental health state globally that needs attention. But also because of this biophilia theory, we are nature. So why not pursue nature connectedness? Because when we pursue nature connectedness, we also pursue self-compassion and connection to ourselves. And if there's something that we need to thrive and have a sane well-being and health, that is a connection to ourselves. And that is also one of the things we've greatly lost, especially maybe within the last 50 to 100 years. So nature is like intrinsically fascinating, as I said, and it also brings us this attention restoration, which again leads to this better mental health. There's a lot of research being done, well, in both Norway and Denmark and just European countries right now, actually stating that what I said I was missing earlier, that nature actually does have a huge impact on our mental health, and we could actually start replacing a lot of our indoor therapies and a lot of our indoor treatments with treatments in nature and with nature. It also very much betters our ability to learn. This has to do with this attention restoration also, that we actually give ourselves a break so we freshly can go learn something new, but also that we're intrinsically fascinated and actually truly wish to learn something about the environment that we're in. And then finally, it can also cause these pro-environmental attitudes and advocacy and behavior. This is also hugely important to the state we're in, both because of the planet's well-being, but also because of the planet being the only planet that we have to live, so hence also our well-being. There's also starting to become a greater and greater concern about disconnection from nature. So a concern that we become disconnected. Maybe some would say that we have already become disconnected, at least where we are, or the lifestyles that possibly all of us are living, where we live indoors, where we spend time on a lot of other things than nature experiences, where we don't go foraging in nature, but we just take a trip to the supermarket and pick out our groceries packed in plastic, sent from far away. Or maybe even we don't even go there anymore. We just order it online and have it sent to us, so we don't even see the choices. So we are becoming a more disconnected population, also because we have this huge eagerness to keep rising in the degrees in our jobs or in our family lives or in our financial status. So we're kind of taking away all the time we could spend with nature on nature experiences. So this, some would say, means that we've actually lost the sense of belonging. We don't no longer feel that we belong anywhere, especially not in nature. In Denmark, we're talking a lot about nature frightened people. Yesterday, I did an arrangement with 30 leaders, and I thought that I really had done everything to sort of pamper them all day and really given them nothing but really nice experiences. And about half of them expressed that they had been out of their comfort when leaving. We had in no way been on any seriously adverse things. They were just cooking outside, but just spending a whole day outside was enough for them to feel out of their comfort zone. Not tremendously, but enough so that they felt that they needed to evaluate on that. And that happens quite a lot to many of us. Also in Norway, even though Norwegians for quite a long time may have perceived themselves as connected enough because of the Friluftsliv's tradition or because of the identity. Actually, a lot of statistics would show that you might not be as connected anymore, or you might not be as experiencing nature as much as you used to be either. So this lost sense of belonging is actually causing a very egocentric worldview. So if you remember that model of the two circles before, we are very egocentric, meaning that everything has to support us. And if it does, we can also do something nice the other way, maybe for nature. But if it doesn't, it fit into our schedule or our life or our life design, maybe even, we do also end up in a place where we thrive from our ego very much. So from very many of us, this means that we're living life basically from like a freedom from perspective instead of a freedom towards perspective. This very often means that we are, trying to do better, and we're always trying to move to another place, so we're never really happy where we are. Also causing like this state of we are victims a lot of the time, even though living, seen from the outside, perfectly good lives. There's also a lot of talk, and has been for about 20 years now, about human beings, or starting with children, suffering from nature deficit disorder. This is actually not a mental disorder and a diagnosis, but in 2005, Richard Louv, an American journalist, gathered a lot of research from people who were saying that this was becoming a problem. They were really expressing concern. There's also expressed concern about extinction of experience, no longer having the possibility of experiencing nature because of this busyness and our changed priorities. So nature deficit disorder isn't an actual disorder, but it may become one. And it's actually pretty life-threatening if it does, because that also means that we even less feel that we belong anywhere, and that means that we even less care about our surroundings. So basically, nature connectedness can sustain both our health, our mental, but also our human or planetary health. So there's both this individual, very deep, emotional, affective side to nature connectedness, and then there's this external side, which could also turn to places where we can both advocate and take action on behalf of nature. And these reasonings for strengthening nature connectedness are pretty thorough in the nature connectedness research. There's, for a long time, been a lot of research on how physical nature contact would get us more connected to nature, in terms of our like well-being physically. So not an emotional connection, but if you use nature as a space for your running, for your hike, for your exercise, that would lead to your better cognition because of the attention restoration. It would lead to social health, because you would very often be doing this in relationships with other people. It would also lead to mental health, because it's nice for us to spend time outside. And obviously it would lead to physical health if we go running or something on a daily basis. But there's something lacking there, because if you go into the psychological nature connection or the emotional state, which is more from an eco-psychology kind of perspective, you also add this dimension of a deep emotional connection. So human nature connectedness leads to all the same things, as I said, that physical nature contact does, but they also lead to this place attachment to places, and also then planetary well-being, because our attitudes are likely to change and our behaviors are likely to change if we're also emotionally connected to nature. This is a model that I made based on a huge amount of research. Basically, Beric and Jason did this a review of reviews. So in research, a review is somebody sitting down reading through a lot of research articles on a certain topic and then writing them down to one. So what he did was he and colleagues, he reviewed a review of reviews. So basically there's a lot of research in there saying that this is actually our very certain way for both human well-being and planetary well-being, which I find hugely interesting. And I very often think that this is the only, or the reason that we really need to work nature-based. We really need to work with health promotion, and we really need to work with this in rehabilitation also, where it's possible. There might be something, some patients that can't get out, at least for a certain time, maybe during their cancer illness, if they're in treatment or something like that. And obviously that needs to be respected. But for all other nature-based interventions, I just am on a mission to get people outside. Here in Denmark, I just thought I would give you a brief picture of what my nature-based world looks like. This is saying that nature-based therapy is gaining strength. Very many people are using nature now, as in Norway after COVID. Things bettered a bit. Also, a few people have withdrawn again and went back into their museums and their indoor training facilities, but quite many more people are also still outside. A few years ago, we were able to actually, for about 100 years, we've had an annual white book about health care, which is basically kind of your stortingsmeldinger. So the governmental documents that are handed out that has like a different perspective each year. So for many years, we've had a white book talking about our healthcare system. But then a few years ago, we were able to get through with a green book about nature as a resource in health-based intervention. And that was actually presented in our, by our prime minister and in our ministry. So this has been taken into our healthcare system as something that could be a guideline or should be looked at as a possible guideline. And that is pretty huge for this field. That's also kind of what Christine and I are trying to work on a global level. But it's pretty huge for the field that that healthcare practitioners or the white healthcare people actually have to listen to the green healthcare people. And something very nice that also happened this year was that our own old queen, who was an elderly lady, she abdicated from her throne, and we got a new king and queen, as you may have heard. These people are in their 50s. The King Frederick is very much into nature, into hunting, into nature experience. And he also talks very much about everything being connected, which is just, pretty amazing, really. Then there's his wife, the Queen, Mary, who is originally from Tasmania in Australia, and she has been very nature connected all her life, and obviously changed her lifestyle a bit when becoming our Queen. But she is a protector of very, very many nature-based initiatives here. And this was actually something that I copied from Inger Marie's profile. I wasn't aware of it until she pasted that the other day. And I'm very glad that our Queen is actually talking about nature as therapy, because she's always used that. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to influence our possibilities of getting this more into the healthcare system even more. So nature-based health interventions. nature-based is a term that's often used. It's also used in other businesses or other other fields, and very often that refers to activities that's focused on physical, mental, or social health based on nature. And that could be like both the preventive work, it could also be a well-being focus, or it could be rehabilitation focus. Basically, it could also just be visits and stays in nature, spending time in nature, going for a friluftsliv trip, or nature elements brought indoors. So maybe some people can't get outside, but you could still work with nature-based health interventions by doing indoor gardening in the nursing homes, or bringing very many hospitals have decorated their birthing rooms with nature pictures and sounds even. But basically, this is very often experiences that leave a mark in people, very often experiences that go pretty deep into our nervous system. And that again has to do with referring back to this intrinsic fascination that we do have, and this need for nature that we do have in us. Sometimes it's therapy facilitated by like a skilled, trained therapeutic staff person. Sometimes it's not. Very often it's actually just being outside, which is good for our nervous system. It is therapeutic, but it doesn't have to be therapy per se, but it still kind of has the somewhat same effect on our mental health and our brains. And obviously, if it's performed by a educated therapist, they will also have extra tools to add on to this, and extra skills and extra hooks to hang off people's feelings on, or the ability to hold space, which can add to that process. But not all nature-based health interventions have to be therapeutic. Really, this has to do with both our well-being, but also our healing. Very much this is about how we need to be part of nature, something that like either are greater or lesser well-being, but just having this daily relationship with nature will give us some sort of alignment in our system, which is really needed also for this sense of coherence and sense of meaning that we really need to fulfilled life and a life in in a balanced well-being state. This also gives us this feeling of being energetic, being able to tackle a new day, but also to live a life that's joy-filled and so about living and not about surviving very much. As I said, nature-based interventions doesn't have to be therapy. Sometimes, obviously, it is therapy, and for very many of you, it might be therapy because you might be therapists by background. But very often you talk about nature therapy as including a third party in the process. So where in the indoor therapeutic room you would have, or space, you would have a client and a therapist. In nature, you would very often have a client and a therapist and nature. So nature could step in and become a co-therapist very often. If the therapist steps back a bit and basically just allows nature to open senses and to restore attention and to rest in the client, it's actually possible to get quite a long way that usually would have taken multiple sessions in indoor therapy. So all of this stress reduction, stress relief in the body of the client obviously makes them able to achieve more in the therapy, where the therapist actually adds some tools and takes direction and starts facilitating therapy, doing therapy. This also means that being out there, if you give the client time to land, you will spend probably more time on a therapy session than you would in the outdoors. or in the indoors, sorry. So in the outdoors, I would never do a therapy session shorter than 3 hours, because I would need to allow that time for just being and feeling this sense of belonging in the place where we are doing the therapy. It can be therapy in a place where you as a therapist feel safe or feel convenient, maybe also. But it can also be therapy in a place where the client feels safe. And very often I like to use the client's nature, so their proximate area. If there's a possibility of going to a forest area or even a nice quiet park, a stream, a beach, anything, that often allows the client to be able to seek back to that place. And that often sparks this connection to place a lot, because they will have had good and safe and held experiences there. So their nervous system will actually have a place to physically go to find rest if there's a lot of rumination, for instance. Nature-based therapeutic interventions and facilitation can obviously also include other types of nature. It could include animals, and it could include various types of therapy in this, or mindfulness work, or healing work, or also possibly bodily therapy work. So nature-based therapy isn't really a new discipline, but it's becoming more and more, I would say, popular. In Denmark, we've been educating nature-based psychotherapists per se for about 4 or 5 years now. We also run university master courses and master programs that educate towards therapy, that are starting to take in, or that to educate towards nature-based therapy, but is starting to take in nature connectedness theory quite a lot, because they see that this is what actually causes this restorative state that they very often need to speak to. So basically, it's very much seen as this triangular relationship between a psychotherapist, a client, and nature. And working with or in nature really sparks this awareness that we really need. But it also sometimes can feel like just doing nature experiences, just doing outdoor recreation or friluftsliv, and just being in in nature, relaxing. And sometimes clients say, or often actually clients say, that that doesn't really feel like therapy. It wasn't so hard, but even maybe they actually got further in their transformations. So this is a space for possible nature connectedness if you are able to allow it, if you're able to find give the client peace, but also find a place that is kind of peaceful. So maybe not the busiest city park, but anywhere nature is definitely gonna open this possibility. I would like to give you a break now. You've been patiently listening for about almost an hour. I hope you're still following. I hope you understand the English that we chose to do this in. I would like to give you, if we say we meet again 10 past, so that's like a 13-minute break. So in that break, get something to eat, get some fresh air, coffee, bathroom break, whatever, but also try and pick one of these exercises and try and do that just for, like, allow yourself 3 minutes maybe to do this. These are exercises that I sometimes provide some of my clients with, and these could obviously be toned up and down in time, but you can also do them in a few hours. So pick one of these, and I will see you again 10 past 7. So now I'm pretty curious to know which exercise you chose. It would be nice if you can write that in the chat, and maybe also write something about what you gained from that. So if you chose to be thankful for nature, maybe write what in nature you're thankful for. if you wrote or chose to listen to the nature sounds, maybe write what you heard or what you noticed in the details one. And being grateful for something is also one of the things that can get us more connected to both ourselves, because we notice what we feel, but also to nature, if we're working with being grateful for something in nature, because we experience it more, we notice it more, and what we pay attention to, that really often becomes important to us. So looking at leaves moving in the wind, being lykkelig og taknemmelig for frisk luft og tryghed, som findes i naturen. So happiness, thankfulness for the fresh air, the safety that nature provides, the sounds from nature, sounds from your belly. That's also nature. You're also nature. Thankfulness, gratefulness for the ocean. That's true. The ocean can really be very brutal and also very soft and kind and indulging. These exercises, as I said before, are some that are on my psychotherapy website, which is sometimes when I feel that I have clients that need a little help getting outside, instead of me just leaving them after a session saying that it's a good idea if you spend some time outside. These could be exercises that they would be given as like a sort of daily homework task until I saw them the next time. And then we could also be, just spending 5 minutes, maybe just picking up on them like we're doing right now. And Inga, you're grateful for the bird sounds, the warmth of the sun, and the smell of wet forest ground. So basically, these are exercises that could be, just taken, plug and play into your practices. Another exercise that I really like to make people do, that's very easy for them to do in their own time, but also that's very nice to be sort of like picking up on, or maybe returning to again and again, is going out and collecting a nature item or a nature gestalt. So it could be anything. I cheated a little, so I did that already. I picked a leaf. These are from a chestnut tree that I have close to where I am. I also collected a cone. Can you see this? A cone. And I found the house of a snail. And all these things are something that you can ask a client, or not even if they're clients, just somebody that you're facilitating nature experience for, to really sit with and feel and sense. Because what happens here is that they're actually like taking into this embodied experience very much. So eventually they will sort of leave all this rumination, and they will leave all these this cognitive thinking and the very developed part of the brain being active, and that will just cause them to leave and get into this embodied experiential state, which is really needed for us. You can also use these nature items. For instance, I got a rock here. It's a very sharp rock, so I can use this to gestalt my emotions into. Maybe I'm doing a family setup, so maybe I want to talk about my dad, and I want to like gestalt him out here, because that way it gets easier for me to maybe talk about him. So I use this nature item like a rock, and I can talk about how my dad was like he was my rock. He was really supportive and really important to me. Or I could perceive it in some completely different way, depending on where my mindset is going. This is a very sharp rock. Maybe my dad was always angry, or maybe he didn't always treat us nicely, or it could be stuff like that that I need to talk about in my inner feelings, that I actually seek therapy for as a client. But it's easier if I can talk about it as the rock. So I can talk about this rock being sharp and pointy, or heavy, or maybe too heavy, or maybe good and sort of strengthful. Or I can talk about this this dandelion leaf, And actually I can smell it too, and I can really feel it, and I can see if I can squeeze some juice out. And maybe there's memories connected to that. Maybe I remember that if I squeeze this dandelion juice out, that will actually help on my mosquito bites that I have here on my hand. So I can use this quite a lot to externalize my emotions, to get clients to talk about it, but actually also at the same time, even though this could have been done with little puppets or Lego bricks or something, if you do it with nature items, you are also getting this sensory, tangible experience to them that also will help them connect. So that's a little trick. And also, if you want to give them like an exercise you can pass on. During COVID, I started doing this quite a lot online also. It's kind of, yeah, a special and weird experience, but it also is kind of nice to be doing this because of the possibility to maybe reach people that wouldn't seek therapy or wouldn't seek outside at all. Great. So Christine, you're grateful for, Stephanie maybe, are grateful for mountains, new perspectives, challenging yourself, feeling like you're working. And T. Björling is grateful for the great, or is noticing the greatness in a small flower, how life is present in each flower petal, and how we most of the times just walk past that flower without noticing this greatness. And that's exactly it. We can really, really easily spark these conversations instead of it sounding like I sounded in the beginning of this, like lecturing how bad it is that we've ruined our planet. You can really sort of kind of get those conversations about mental health or the ability to thrive a lot if you do like this externalization process and put it into a leaf of a flower. It could be your gratefulness, or it could be your just your need to borrow somebody else to hold your emotions for a bit, for an hour or a day or whatever you need. Maybe you have your special tree that always can hold whatever you have that you need lifted off yourself. So taking nature connectedness into the practice of health interventions. We kind of just did that now. We just kind of sent all of you out to maybe try how it is to be the client in this setting, but maybe also to try how to take some of these practices into your own therapeutic practices as professionals. We know, as I showed you before, that nature connectedness and mental health is closely related. Richardson, who is a researcher at the University of Derby in the UK, has done a lot of nature connectedness research. And he is also very interested in this combination of human well-being and planetary well-being, or human health and planetary health. So we'll both be, by noticing nature, becoming more like, we will maintain our sanity, we'll be balancing our well-being, but we will also be becoming more pro-environmental. Our pro-nature behaviors will be increasing, which is sort of like a win-win situation. But some of those factors that are important to the ability to feel nature connected as a human being are time and access. Time and access are hugely mentioned in the research literature as the most important factors for the possibility to make an individual feel nature connected. So we need this nature exposure. We need the possibility to have nature. Either we go to it. Where you live in Norway, you're pretty lucky. You probably have really great nature, quality nature all around. Some other places in the world that might be difficult, or in some situations for some human beings, it might not be possible. If you're hospitalized, or if you live in a nursing home and can't move yourself, or if you're in prison, or for many reasons are too busy and not prioritizing this. This access to nature can be really a factor, combined with the time factor, because we have so much other stuff that we need to spend our lives doing that we really don't prioritize nature experiences a lot, which again then causes these misbalances in our systems, both human systems and planetary systems. But if you do wish to work with this, or if you wish to work nature connectedness informed, like knowing what nature connectedness is and how it can benefit your practice as a therapist, these are some of the things you could do. I'm not at all saying that this is the only things you could do. And you could do this both self-facilitated, so send out, as I just did with you, send out the client to do something themselves, homework-based, or it could be very much therapist-held and therapist-facilitated. Also, obviously, adding all the therapeutic tools you would have with you within your educational systems. But it could be just mindfulness activities, just lying down somewhere. Very, very rarely people just lie down in nature, which is so odd because it kind of invites you to do it. But very many people feel that they haven't done that since they were children, maybe. Children obviously do it because we haven't put these norms of society on them yet. It could be meditation. It could be either guided or meditations that you facilitate or that you make them do themselves. One very good exercise that I'm very fond of could also be making the client write their own meditation and record it. So they would actually be reading out their own meditations to themselves. You could do that facilitated first, but you can also send them home with that. That's like an extra possibility of grounding in nature. You could be forest bathing. In Denmark, forest bathing has become quite big. So taking the Japanese tradition in of actually just being to belong very much in nature. You could work with Gestalt therapy, as we just did here, about externalizing our client's emotions into nature items. You could just basically be having a nature experience. So going for a walk, which also will get motor skills going and get sensory experiences increased, which again will open the nervous system for the client to be spoken to if you need to be speaking to each other through therapy. So the big question is, how do we then do it? We kind of like maybe establish now that nature connectedness might be a thing that you would look into or wish to accomplish, but how is it then actually done? And there's a few different takes on this. Here you're going to get very much, obviously, my takes and the research path that I've followed, but also very much the facilitator practice that I have had in me for many years. For something that I think really feels like it's working, but then also for the evidence-based way of what is actually, seen as something that is working. But something that I always really like to try to aim at is moving people away from this idea of like faster, higher, stronger that human beings are always striving towards, and maybe going the complete opposite way. So like towards milder, towards slower, towards more authentic experiences. So it doesn't have to be really far away. It doesn't have to be really complicated or take a lot of gear or take a lot of anything really, skills. It can be very, very soft adventure and still be very meaningful towards connectedness. Something I also really strive for is working on this with these 3 levels in mind. So a lot of research talks about that being in nature is something we have been pretty good at here in Scandinavia. We have been pretty good at getting out in nature. But we very often just use nature as an arena. We use it like as our the frame we walk into, and we use it very much for the sake of us. But if you do get higher sort of in your nature connectedness, you actually are able to be with nature instead. That means that you are actually able to take in nature maybe as a co-therapist in your therapy, or you're able to think about nature as a possibility or a possible sort of peer or a friend or somebody you also need to collaborate with or ask permission maybe. And then the last step of this is being for nature. That's where we actually start seeing ourselves as deeply interconnected, being alive for each other and reciprocally dependent on each other. This is where we start to take care of nature and actually maybe set aside our own needs for being able to do something for nature. So being in, being with, and being for is something that I try to think about quite a lot when I take in nature connectedness in my therapy. Because it's pretty known that the factors in human well-being are being active, it's being aware of something, it's that you keep your brain and your physical body learning new skills all the time, or new knowledge. It's about compassion, giving to others, and it's about connecting. And this connectedness, again, Miles Richardson in Derby has created this framework that I'm really, really fond of. I've also used it quite a lot in my research, about what you need to work on specifically if you want to become more nature connected, or if you want to facilitate that other people, clients, for instance, become more nature connected. These 5 pathways is something that you really need to incorporate. So you need to make sure that it is meaningful for the client. That would also mean that it doesn't feel or is not perceived as frightening, scary, harmful. So if the client has never been outside before, maybe don't start out with a darkness hike in the winter, but start out with something lighter that may be perceived as nice and safe. It's very much about the emotional side, so that if you remember those 3 components by Schultz, this affective component about noticing our emotions, noticing how do I actually feel here, how do I feel in various nature types, do I maybe feel different on a mountaintop than on a beach or in a forest? Is there some types of nature that makes me feel more secure or more happy? Sensory experiences we've talked a lot about, so making sure that all senses are are opened all the time and are used. So when taking up this dandelion flower or a leaf, make sure to smell it, maybe even take a bite of it, so that we actually keep doing this very, very deliberately in order to make us more connected. Noticing beauty is also another thing, and that is really about noticing the little things. As you wrote about the flower petals, that's seeing like the little things in nature, or noticing how maybe sunset will make you feel something, maybe grateful, maybe closeness to the person you're experiencing this with, which again leads to this compassion part. So compassion could be towards yourself, being happy that I did something nice to myself. I prioritized a walk instead of just more screen time today. Or it could be compassion towards other people. You feel that you want to help out and give somebody else something to lean into. Or it can be compassion towards nature. So you feel that you want to advocate and you feel that you want to act on behalf of nature. So these 5 things are something that you can deliberately work on if you're trying to become more nature connected yourself, or if you're trying to make other people feel more connected. I see these phases as individual phases you need to go through. The good thing about nature connectedness is that you can always start, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, no matter where you are, geographically or in your mindset. You can, it's never too late to start becoming nature connected. And the reason for that is that nature connectedness is not a new skill that we're learning and adding on to us. It's basically seeing from that this genetic perspective. It is basically something that's inside of us that just needs to be unlocked. So I see these 5 phases that are research-based steps towards becoming a nature-connected individual. The first phase is awareness. In the awareness phase, we need to notice actually what we're doing right now in this webinar, that it's actually a thing. We should be having a relationship with nature. So becoming aware that nature connectedness exists also by going out there, sensing nature, or bringing nature in. And then the next level we're able to move up to is appreciation. So we start noticing nature around us. We start noticing those little flower petals, or seeing like how amazingly built this pine cone is. And then we start exploring our own emotions towards that. When we start getting deeper into that level, we're able to rise onto the attitude level here, where we actually start knowing what we feel about nature. Maybe there's things that we don't like. Maybe there's things that frighten us, that we perceive as dangerous. Maybe we need to work on that. Maybe we just need to accept that. Maybe we just need to be aware of this. So when we know that how our own attitude towards nature is, we can usually become more into the step that I talked to you about for as with nature, or maybe even for nature. So you can start advocating for nature. You can start physically going out, picking litter, helping out in a local community activity towards ecology, or towards bettering the environment. And you can start like being the ones that take action. You can start being the ones that actually maybe go first and start groups, or start initiatives that will better planetary health, but it will also better your own routines in terms of maybe adding nature into your daily practices for just balancing your mental health state. So my goal is always very much about the nature connected mindset. It's very much about basically doing everything nature connectedness informed. So knowing that nature connectedness and the human nature relationship is a thing to be remembered is one thing. And it's very much about perceiving yourself as the part of nature, as the biophilia hypothesis proposed. It's very much about valuing nature, prioritizing nature, making sure that if you really, really live in an urban place, very many cities in the planet, not in Norway and Denmark, but very many other places, you would have such a long access to get to quality nature, or any type of nature, that it just wouldn't be possible. So maybe prioritizing this could be something as big as moving. But just also getting there when you feel responsibility towards the environment. So you could actually go into this advocacy space, or taking action towards it. Because we also know that people that are feeling more nature connected, that do have this nature connectedness mindset, they actually tend to have a greater life. They tend to be more satisfied. They tend to be more eudaimonically happy. So like their own perceived happiness is better. And they also like measurably have less stress hormones in their body, less anxiety, lower anxiety levels, and are more likely to then do it again, to go outside more, to engage in these activities, outdoor recreational activities. So developing this mindset is really something you can do from this time and access perspective, but I'm also very much fond of an idea that it's also about content. It's very much about what you do there. So it's nice that you have access. It's needed that you have access. It's needed that you give yourself, or take time enough to make it possible to go maybe on a daily walk in the forest. But it's also very much about what you do there. So if you just go for a quick daily walk in the forest, you will get all the benefits on the physical side, as we started out talking about. But you might miss out on this emotional connection. So when you give yourself time to sense a leaf, or lie down and look up in the top of the trees, or maybe get your pulse up and kind of like feel how this actually works in terms of affecting you, that is where you actually also get into the state where this affects your happiness and your well-being, and then your overall life satisfaction actually. So this really, really is like an all-time win-win situation. Sometimes I feel like I'm selling nature connectedness, because it really I really, really like the concept so much. But it really, really is about this reciprocal benefit relationship. So method-wise, I very, very often mix nature connectedness and therapy. I do it both for health promotion, but I also just do it to sort of keep focusing on well-being. And sometimes I also work with rehabilitation. I used to do that more before. I worked with cancer patients, and I worked with obese children, and very many different people that wasn't really in therapy, but they were still very much needed or needing the nature arena and the connectedness facilitation. It's very often about deep and meaningful experiences, and it's also about this aim for transformation. It's kind of nice to know that I'm here at my A and I wish to do these steps towards my B. You can follow some of these frameworks I've showed you, but there's also obviously a framework for each person, because each person will be at a different level, needing different things and having different nervous systems. But it's also very much about remembering this. Is nature an arena, or is it a co-therapist? Are you actually going to use nature as your co-therapist? You can do this by holding space. Sometimes when I tell people, or at least if I'm out with one client and I tell them to lie down in a forest and I just leave them or like stay far away, a lot of dog walkers or runners will be very concerned because there's like seemingly a dead person lying in the forest. So they will disturb very much because they will sort of come up and check out if this individual lying in the forest is okay, which is in a way nice, but also sometimes disturbing for the experience. So sometimes it's just my role to hold space, to sort of approach that dog walker and tell him that everything's under control and there's a meaning with this, and that person there in the forest is not dead. Or even in the water, I also do floating therapy, and people floating in the water also is something that really sparks people's curiosity, but also very much their concern, in a nice way and in a disturbing way. So thinking about this, are you using nature as your co-therapist? And how it looks in the way I work with it a lot is these different sessions. I offer nature-based psychotherapy sessions. That is proper therapy. I keep journals. It's very much like a normal therapy session, but still with the length and the arena and the co-instruction from nature. Then I do theta healing, which very much is about getting your brain into theta waves. So a state where you open your mind, you go kind of like to this spiritual place where you can see much more. You can also sometimes feel that you're sitting somewhere above yourself, looking down on yourself, which creates a lot of clarity towards maybe your next steps in your life path. I also work very much with mindfulness, various exercises, both to give away and to facilitate. And then I worked with forest bathing, and I think I talked about that. And then there's ocean floating. Floating therapy is kind of becoming popular in the world now as something you do inside like a closed casket-looking box, where you spend some time in salt water just floating, which is really good for your body. Because it sort of takes away stress and kind of like holds your nervous system very well. I've been doing that for a few years now in the ocean. So instead of sort of creating this artificial environment for doing this, I've been doing it in in the actual ocean. Sometimes also providing people with wetsuits to be able to have them lying there for a longer time. And then I will just stand and hold them and have them feel how the ocean is actually taken. As I said before, how you can lean into a tree trunk. You can also lean into the ocean very much with your emotions or something that you need relief of. Very many people describe this as when being in a uterus. Many people of us obviously don't remember that state, but our body does. Our body remembers this complete feeling of being held by something that's greater than us. Then I also very much do stuff like this, talk about nature connectedness, try to spread awareness of the field, but very much also through experience. It could be longer or shorter classes. And then I do programs. It's not therapy per se, but it's still group-based programs for youth or for people that are in situations where the sorrow is a thing for them, they're grieving. but also just people that kind of need this stress relief experience without ever having gone to the doctors and gotten a prescription for nature-based anything or for therapy. Yeah. So this grief program is my 8 or 10-week program, which I usually allow 8 clients in on. It's about letting go, very much about letting go of the bad feelings about grief, instead of like incorporating or embracing that grief is probably going to be with you for life, for the loved one that you lost. But it's kind of the transition into this being something I can deal with, and something I can maybe leave for a while with my my favorite tree and my favorite park and my favorite place on the beach. And then after this program, for some people, this 10-week program is not enough. Usually I have people here that has lost, usually it's a youth that has lost either a parent or a sibling. So that is a pretty great loss usually. And sometimes there's like a need to kind of stay in my alumni group for this community, where we do like a check-in call where I kind of check in on them. And then they sort of group together and arrange stuff themselves because they found each other in this program. Sometimes I do completely other things that has nothing to do with therapy, but still has very much to do with the sensory experiencing. I did that yesterday with a whole group of leaders. So they get to cook wild meat. Here we cooked pheasants. So they got to like pluck their own pheasants, open their pheasants up and cook them for each other, arrange it very aesthetically, pick some herbs in the nearby area, and basically just spend time sensing this experience. So knowing where their food came from, but also sensing the beauty of this pheasant feather, or maybe picking off a tail feather, using it for something, or wanting to, a lot of people usually want to collect them for dream catchers for their children or stuff like that. So basically spending a lot of time preparing food, but also noticing where this food came from and experiencing the aesthetics of it also. Sometimes I do groups for like community centers. It could be this one for cancer patients, and also obviously their spouses or their parents or whoever is around them, so that we get to go outside and have great experiences in nature together, and somewhat for a while forget the fact that they might be terminal cancer patients or just really ill. This makes them bond both with themselves and with nature, and provides this other space than just a hospital space. Yeah, as I talked about ocean floating, very much a supportive activity for your nervous system, and very much something that people will do playfully on the beach for 20 seconds, but never for 20 minutes. So it's a very nice activity to sort of really let them be part and held of something greater than themselves. It's pretty light here in Denmark now, but all through the dark season, so the winter, we don't have darkness as in complete darkness, obviously, but all through the winter, I do a lot of darkness hikes. So I collect groups of people, either just when it's dusk, or just before dawn, and we get to spend some time walking together, usually silent walking, and usually very calmly walking in nature. And very often also we get to lie down. Here we got to lie down on this beach meadow kind of place where the stars is just amazing. So just lying there for as long as you can in winter until they're shaking cold, and then providing them with a nice big bonfire and some warm food after that. It's very calming for them, and very much a nature connecting experience. sometimes. A while ago, I did this. I did Out with the Elderly program, where I facilitated educations for an entire municipality. And we created the possibility for elderly people that were no longer really getting out that much to relive a lot of stuff from their youth. This guy was really amazing. He had dementia. He had stopped talking, but when we were out there, he started singing like bonfire scout songs, which was really an amazing experience to kind of see like how the bonfire and how those memories and those sort of meaningfulness experiences that he had with him in his system could kind of like awake this ability for him to actually speak. Yeah, so basically what I want to say here about this is that what I very much try to think about is that, is it always needed to do like a wilderness experience? Is it always needed to have like great nature, expensive experience or expensive gear or all that? Or is it maybe okay to just do like proximate nature experiences? So basically just get some outdoor spirit in on your everyday life basis. This usually also has very low expenses or none. It's very accessible and it can become a frequent thing. Whereas if you think that you need to go really, really far or to really, really great nature as the only possible thing for your nature connectedness or your clients, that may become so hard that it does become very infrequent. And as you all noticed, time is a factor. So we need as much time as possible for nature connecting. So just a few examples, just to give you that. Basically, you can do whatever with nature items. You can use them as gestalt therapy. You can externalize things. You can build beautiful patterns. You can collect things and arrange them in colors. You can work with mandalas here, working with life faces, having the client sleep in their life faces or stand or sit or touch or feel. You could do the same with stones, depending on rocks, depending on where you are, obviously, what you have the ability to collect. If you're in an urban environment, very often you can't collect, for instance, rocks, but you may be able to, you can even, if you're walking in like a nicely sort of dressed garden, which is not your Norwegian problem, but maybe somebody else's problem, you could even just take pictures of this, if not possible to do anything else. And basically just activities that is about sensing. So right now it's definitely like the smelling season. Everything has such a nice smell. You can really get out and just indulge in all these nature smells and also nature sounds. As somebody also wrote, they're grateful for bird songs. You can hear that. You can hear that very early in the morning. And just being awakened by a bird singing is obviously much nicer than your alarm. But also getting the more sort of experience that you wouldn't, or your client probably wouldn't think of themselves, like ocean dipping when it's cold, or walking barefoot in the snow, maybe, or spending time in nature. I very often have groups that say that I've never sat down for an entire hour in nature without a purpose. It's not a very long time, but very often we're just too busy and we don't allow that time for it. So just facilitating that is something that can bring these sensory experiences in. And then just, yeah, I kind of said that, just about being, just allowing time, that it's okay to set aside time for nothing. It's okay to also spend your therapy time on nothing, because it's never going to be nothing. It's just not going to be so cognitive. Yeah, I think more or less that's about it. But basically, like, my whole aim here has very much been to invite you in on a thinking about how we need to move from this egocentrism towards ecocentrism. Very much sort of about transforming people's attitudes, but also sometimes just about awakening their awareness towards this. And I find that people react very much, very strongly very positively to nature connectedness exercises and to just nature experience in general. And I really encourage you to start thinking about it. The ones of you that were a 3, maybe also a 2 on the first question. Are you thinking about this always or somewhat or not really? To sort of like try getting that more into your system and your thought and also your planning in your professional lives. Yeah. I just wanted to briefly tell you that nature connectedness is something that can be measured. This could be full very many weeks course. So I've just like brought a few measurements to show you, but I really feel that sometimes that is what we need. Sometimes we also have maybe employers that need this, or prime ministers that need this, or healthcare systems that need this, that we can actually also say something about the effect of what we're doing. So nature connectedness measurement are many psychologically validated measurement methods. I've brought 2. I brought this one, which is very simple. You don't need to be a researcher to use this, but obviously you probably need to be a researcher to publish something on this. But you could try it out. It's called the Inclusion of Nature in Self Scale. It's actually from 2011, and then it's been sort of like remade. But that is about how you perceive yourself. So this is very much an individual feeling, and this is about whether, like in the one circle there's you, and in the other circle there's the planet, and then the more nature connected you perceive yourself, the more these kind of like overlap. So the rest one, or the last one, the G, that's a person that is perceiving themselves 100% as nature. They don't separate between themselves and nature. They would see themselves as just as valuable as this leaf or a rock or a blue whale or an ant or anything. Very many of us don't. We at least don't live that way, and I don't think we perceive ourselves that way either. But I think very many of us do not wish to be an A. And this is about how you perceive yourselves and not how you behave. That's also very important to say. But this is a very, and the probably most simple measurement method there is, which is like a validated method. But something also I wanted to talk to you about was this Connection to Nature Index, which has also been refined. This is now a 14 item scale, where all these questions are like cross-referenced. So whenever answering a question, that will also have a meaning for how you answer the next and whatever comes out of this. So you score here. I didn't bring that, but you score like yeah, a different score from 1 to 5, and then you will sort of get a number, just like in any sort of other scale or a ladies magazine. Even you are this type. So it's possible to sort of measure how nature connected you feel. And these questions are, this one is, I brought that because it's sort of validated both for adults and children. So this is actually one of the only scales that is sort of validated to use until, I think, down to 8 years old. No, 6 years old. Yeah, so that I find really, really interesting that you can actually do this. You can actually measure for even your own sake or their own sake to just kind of keep track. But you can also measure if you want to validate your methods, or if you want to, yeah, maybe prove your point to somebody above you. As I maybe said in the beginning, I have started this Center for Nature Connectedness under my Need for Nature group umbrella, where I hope to gather a lot of nature connectedness research, and obviously also add my own research there, but really gather like a lot of research in the field and translate that to practice, so it becomes more accessible for practitioners in many different states and styles. So if you're interested in that, I encourage you to take a look at that site or sign up for the newsletter maybe, where you can sort of hear of new things and new articles that come out. Yeah, that's basically it, I think. I promised a bit of time for questions. You now have 3 minutes, but I can stay for longer if you can. Is there anybody who would like to say anything? I have talked for like 2 hours now, so it's your turn.
Hi. Thank you so much. This was so interesting. I used to live out in the forest for 2 years.
Nice.
And I came back to the society and I was like, how do I speak about this? So you just did.
Great.
And now I work at the university with vernepleier education. And I would love to bring something like this into the education. So maybe we could speak later on, or
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Right now in Denmark, I'm actually experiencing this very much from the teaching education and the preschool teacher education. They're like hugely sort of almost, I don't know, craving this right now. So they're like, we want to be the first one. No, we want to be the first one. We want to incorporate this. This makes so much sense. And I really feel that this increase in this field is really happening because so many people are starting to see that we need frameworks, or we need tools to speak about this, because we know it's there. We just haven't really sort of grasped it yet. So I'd love to.
How did you start to grasp this? It must have been a tremendous work.
Yeah, it is. But I worked in the University of Copenhagen in the Center for what do we call it? Videnscenter for Natur- og Friluftsformidling. And I there always kind of searched for this for so many years. This was like teaching students on a hunch of this being good for them, or a hunch of this being good for the people that they were going to teach afterwards, or and also kind of feeling that especially the health bit has kind of been stronger, I think, but especially the pro-environmentalism bit has been sort of like, yeah, we kind of think if children has been in nature kindergartens, they will become healthier adults, but we're not really sure. So like the first time I came across this field is maybe, I think it's like 12, 15 years ago maybe, and that was like the serious like world's greatest aha moment, because this was like, yes, this is it. This is like exactly what I need to start explaining this. And then I think I kind of left it a bit, and then I just kind of got deeper into it, and yeah, I really am very, very sort of fond of this field, as you may have noticed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tanya. That was a really nice speech. I've heard it before, and I'm always super impressed when you talk. And I'm really happy that so many of you joined us today. And then we are really happy also to say that Tanya is coming to Bodø next week. And she will then do a 2-day training practice with us on the first meeting of this course leader training that Helse i Luft is doing. So that will be really great to see it in practice and to try it, and yeah.
There's also answer the last question also here. How do I choose among the different therapies for clients? For example, ocean floating instead of forest. I usually try to get to know the client pretty well before, for instance, ocean floating with them, because that's pretty intense. But other things I could easily do, like, you know, hiking experiences, cooking experiences, which are more like, yeah, just outdoor recreational experiences. More or less anybody could feel okay with that. Obviously, if you do have a client that is really insecure in nature, you wouldn't start there. I also have like an indoor like classic office where you could start sitting in your armchair and talking, and then I could maybe feed you like a little rock or a little leaf, and then you could sort of start sensing that, and then from there on we could move out. But I very rarely, or I like a few times a year maybe I have that kind of client, but I don't really get them that often, because usually those clients would be stuck somewhere in like the white healthcare system. So they would be provided with other possibilities. But I do find it very interesting to sort of to be able to also get in there, if our field could get in there and kind of be able to provide that. That would be very interesting. But again, just thank you all so much for showing up and spending your evening with us. And thanks, Inga-Marie and Christine, for setting this up and also for opening up towards other people. I think that was a very smart move for our common field.
So little by little, we are moving this field forward, and I think it's, yeah, we are on a good move, on a good wave, I think.